Hello everyone, this is General Hand Grenade. Welcome to my war room in Prince George, British Columbia. I'm showing you a picture of the sky right now. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's not as blue as it usually is, and you can actually see on the horizon there, it's pretty white. There's no clouds out there. It's actually a clear blue day, but the problem is I live in the middle of a giant forest, and the forest is on fire. Several forest fires all around the region here. Nothing threatening my town, but other towns, people are losing homes and farms and all kinds of things. And we have over 6,000 refugees in town here that we're doing our best to take care of. But anyway, I'm not going to the lake this weekend because I'm getting tired of being outside there and choking on smoke. I've been working all week, and the work that I do is pretty heavy, and I'm getting pretty tired of choking on smoke like that. So I'm gonna stay inside today for the most part. I gotta go out and do a couple of things, but I thought I'd make a video today. So anyway, let's just go back to the board here. There we go. Shut this curtain here. So I was wondering what should I do today, and one of the things I've been wanting to do for a while now is do my own version of Sealion, and it's not that much different from other versions that you might have seen, because there's not a lot of different things that you can do as the German player. Of course, you're going to hit them as hard as you can, but there's not a million different ways you can do it. There's only, say, 4 or 5 different ways you can do it. So and you've probably already done it before if you've played the game for a while. So I'm just going to show you the way that I'm going to do it here today, just because I've got nothing else to do today. If there was other people here, then I could actually play a game, but it's summertime and most people aren't tired of the smoke. They're out at their own lakes or doing whatever. So anyway, now the decision whether to go Sealion, it's really up to Germany to dictate the play of the whole game. And you're looking at the German opening setup here. I'll just leave the camera here and let you and talk about it for a couple minutes. Germany really dictates the play for the rest of the game, or at least for the first, say, 3 or 4 turns. And it depends on what they do in their opening turn, and what they do and how well they do it informs the Russians in what they should do. The Japanese will take their cue and decide what they should do after that. And of course, the British and the Americans, what Germany does is crucial in the decisions that they make in their first couple of turns. Anzac, not so much. Anzac is just going to be Anzac down in Australia there. So what Germany does doesn't have that much an effect on them. France, of course, big effect. Although really, they don't really have any choices in the matter. For them, it's just a matter of hanging on as well as they can. But Germany is going to dictate what is going to happen in this game. Not this game that I'm playing here, but any game of Global 40. So it's up to Germany to decide what they want to do. And then it's up to everyone else to react to that first turn. So Germany, they kind of have 2 options. They can go after Great Britain here, and that in history was called Operation Sealion. They never actually did go for Operation Sealion because they couldn't get air superiority. If you read your history books or watch any documentaries on the Battle of Britain, the British won the Battle of Britain, and that was the battle for the skies over top of the United Kingdom, or over top of London for the most part, but through the English Channel as well. So I mean, the Germans couldn't really go there for a landing because their boats would have been exposed to the British Air Force, and so it really wasn't an option to them. But in this game, of course, we get to rewrite history. So, you know, if the British don't build a huge air force at the beginning of the game, then that option is going to be open to you throughout the game. And there's a few different ways you can do it. You can try to do it as quick as possible, which would be the 3rd turn. You would be attacking London and trying to take the capital out and taking the UK Europe money. Or you could do a double landing where you're going to Scotland first up here, and then on the next turn you're going on both of them. You can do that on any turn, although you probably want to do that as soon as possible as well before the Americans get in the war. And then there's another option where you can do it at any point during the game, where the UK player has all but fallen asleep and left themselves open to that. You're fighting against the Russians for the most part, and the British get busy down in Africa in the Med or whatever, and they're not thinking about defending their capital, and they didn't put enough units on there at the beginning of the game, and so you see an opening, you buy the transports, and away you go. You take London out. That's probably the most likely scenario. Is that kind of a Sealion attack where you're doing it later in the game, unless it's the concerted effort where you're trying to attack it on the third turn. And I think that the Germans, when they begin the game, they should be thinking about taking London. My friend Young Grasshopper in Toronto, he advocates faking Sealion, and I know what he's talking about, and I think we all do. But what I'm saying is actually plan to take London, plan a Sealion attack, and then when your second turn rolls around, after everybody else has had a chance to go, well, then you decide, okay, am I going to continue this Sealion attack or not? But actually make your purchases, do all your moves with the intention of taking London, because that's the best way to fake it anyway, is to do everything you can to set it up for the second and third turns. It doesn't do any good to fake it and to buy the units or to take your units out of range of that. Like if you were to take all the ground units that you have in here that you're going to need for the attack, and you take them over to the Eastern Front, well, they're not going to get to be able to get back to Western Germany or to Holland in time to do that third turn landing. And you don't want to do it on the fourth or fifth or sixth turn, because then the Americans are in the war, and it's not going to do you a lot of good to try to take it out. Even if you were able to take it out, then the Americans are going to take it back right away, and then you've used it takes a considerable amount of resources. You're going to have to buy a lot of transports and boats, and you're going to have to drop a lot of ground units on London in order to do this. And then if you do that, then you're going to be behind the eight ball when it comes to the Eastern Front, which is even more important to the German war effort and to the Axis war effort. Moscow is a much better option if you're trying to win the game. But if you do nothing but go towards Moscow, if you do start the beginning of the game and you do all your purchases, and you're obviously moving towards Moscow, then the British can just forget about defending their capital. If you've ever seen my video, the UK strategy, Middle Earth, and if you've tried that, you can see how devastating that is there for the British to be able to set up down in the middle of the board down there and to just build tons and tons of units. If you can do that without that threat of Sealion attack on you, then that's almost unbeatable strategy. I've done it a number of times, and I've yet to be beaten using that strategy. But the only real defense against that Middle Earth strategy is for you to attack London, for the Germans to attack London. Even then, that's not a guarantee of an Axis victory, because for one, you might not be able to take London, or if you are able to take London, it might take too many resources for you to do that, and you don't have enough to defend yourself or have a credible fight in the Eastern Front if you've used too many resources in order to take out London. Like you know you're going to need a number of ground troops, but you could also lose a lot of your planes when you're going in there, and then, well, you know, like if you lost just about the entire Luftwaffe, then you're just about hooped for the entire game, because you're probably only going to get around 30 IPCs if you take out London. You take the other person's money if you take their capital, right? So if you're playing a game under normal Global 40 rules, you're better off taking Moscow than you are taking London, that's for sure. Moscow is harder to take back for the Allies than London is. London you can take back with the Americans. Moscow you're kind of isolated. There you'd have to go through all of Asia just to get that back, or you'd have to come up from the south there. And the other good thing about going for Moscow is that you've got three Russian cities that you can take. See, there's 1, 2, and 3 there. And you need to take 8 victory cities on the Europe side in order to win the game if you're going to do it in Europe. Of course, you can take it in Asia as well. But I mean, if you're going normal victory conditions, then that's what you have to do is you need to take cities. And you're only taking 1 city if you're taking out London. You're taking 3 cities if you're taking Moscow. And so that's going to get you a lot further on your way to victory. So, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't set up to take London. For one thing, if you're going to play cliffside bunker rules, and I'll be going to the Field Marshal Games Convention this September to play in Grasshopper Invitational, and in that tournament we will be playing cliffside bunker rules. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about by now, but I'll just briefly explain that he has a token system for winning the game. And one of the tokens is to take out London. And tokens are a big deal to get a token. You're probably going to win the game if you can get 3 tokens. So that's 1 token right there. And London is only 1 token. So unlike before where I described you get 3 cities as opposed to 1, you're getting the same punch, I guess you could say. And it's easier for you to take London than it is for you to take Moscow. So if you're going to play cliffside bunker rules, then definitely this is a much better option to go after Sealion than it would be under normal victory conditions. Not only that, but another one of his house rules is that you get the 5 IPC national objective if you control London as an Axis player. So that's a big deal, and I would assume that there will be a lot of sea lion attacks in the tournament that I'm going to be going to in September, the Grasshopper Invitational, just for that reason, because it is worth a lot more in cliffside bunker rules than it is in normal rules. So I'm going to get back to you right away. I'm just going to regather my thoughts. I just wanted to give you an opening spiel. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, so I set up some purchases here, different types of purchases that can help you along your way here. As I was saying, that what I think is the best way to go is to plan on doing the sea lion attack, knowing that there's probably only, say, a 25 to 30% chance that you're actually going to do a sea lion attack, but set up for it anyway, because you don't know what the British player is going to do. If the British player doesn't put anything on London, then you're going to be pretty sad that you bought 10 infantry and put them all on Germany, because you've wasted an opportunity to take out London easily. So make your purchases so that you are going to take out London, and then if you can't take it, then that's fine. But try to do it so that you can actually use those purchases even if you don't do a sea lion attack. So here, let's take a look at this one here. You get 30 IPCs to begin with. So I've got a destroyer here, and a destroyer is good to have. It's always good to have in any navy. But in this one here, like you've got a couple of submarines. There's one here and there's one here. And of course the British can buy a submarine at any point in time. They can buy a sub and put it over here on Quebec. If you don't have any subs or any destroyers in your navy, then you're susceptible to submarine strikes. So it's always good to have a destroyer. And then I've got 2 transports here. Now, two transports, you're going to need transports to get over to London, right? So you buying a couple of transports on the first turn is a good idea. Then you don't have to buy so many transports on the second turn. But like you notice, I didn't go ahead and buy 4 transports because you don't need 4 transports if you don't do Sealion. But I like to have at least 3 transports if I'm the German player, even if I don't do Sealion. Having transports down in the Baltic Sea here is always a good idea because then you can move your troops right up to Leningrad here. You can move them across up into Finland or into Viborg, even the Baltic states. You can be purchasing infantry and putting them either on Germany or Western Germany, or artillery as well, because artillery is something that is handy to have. And it's a cheap unit. Like, it's the same price as a mechanized infantry. The mechanized infantry gets you to the front faster, but the artillery is more valuable in that you can pair that with a mechanized infantry or an infantry to upscale that to an attack of 2 instead of 1. So having 3 transports in here means that you can get 6 slow movers, 2 spaces at the very least, up to the Baltic states. But you could also maybe get them even further. Like you could get them up to Leningrad if you want. You also have the option of sailing around, so you can go all the way around here. You could get them up in the back here. That just gives you an extra option to have a few transports. Whether or not you decide to ever go after London, having 3 transports is not going to hurt you as the German player. So I've got the destroyer, I've got 2 transports, and then I kind of want to throw them off a little bit, but this is also helping too. I bought 2 artillery. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, artillery is great to have because it upscales your infantry. Ideally, if you're going to go on a Sealion attack, you're going to want to have about 10 transports. Now, you should know by now, and you probably already do, that you can only you have to transport at least 10 infantry on 10 transports. You could have 10 tanks with that if you wanted, but you have to have at least 10 infantry. So that's 10 units that are only attacking at 1 or more. And when you look at what we have over here on the Western Front, we only have 2 artillery here and 1 artillery here. And so if they're going to be going after France down here. Now, hopefully you don't lose any of them. Hopefully you're only losing your infantry, but you might lose artillery in that fight for France down there when you go after Paris. And even if you don't, let's say that you are able to save all 3 of those artillery, that's great, because then you add in these 2 artillery here, and then on your 10 transports, then you're going to be able to take 10 infantry and 5 artillery that you all already have, and then 5 tanks. And that's going to be a great attack, because that's going to give you 5 at 1 for your infantry, 10 at 2 because you've got 5 artillery and 5 infantry that are going to be able to attack at 2, and then you've got your 5 tanks at 3, and then whatever planes that you have after that are going to be either at 3 or at 4. But also these artillery are going to help you if you don't go on a Sealion attack, because you can always use artillery in ground warfare. Artillery is one of the most useful pieces on the board when you factor in the cost and the benefit that you get from that. Plus, that might fake them out a little bit, because this purchase is a great purchase even if you're not going for a Sealion attack. So he might not take you very seriously because you bought a couple of ground units. Your opponent who is playing the British is what I'm referring to here. So you put these units on, and you can put them right on. You can put them right on Germany here, because when I put my purchases on, I'm going to put them right here, and because they can reach London from here, but they can also pick up units from here and from here. So that's why I want my Navy back here. You could put it out here, But I think it's more useful if you have it here, because you can draw the ground units from Germany, and that way you don't have to move all of your ground units over to West Germany. You can put your ground units here, and there's a naval base here, but that's good for C Zone 112 and C Zone 113. So if you park in C Zone 113, then you have the same protection from your scrambling fighters as you would if you were in C Zone 112. So I would put, when I'm putting my purchases on, I would put all the boats here, and I would put the two artillery over here. That way, if you decide on the second turn that you're not going to buy more transports and you're not going to go for London, then you've got two artillery that are close to the Eastern Front to use in a Barbarossa attack. Here's another way to purchase. You buy an aircraft carrier, which I would probably want to buy on my second turn. If I went for this purchase here, then I would probably want to buy the aircraft carrier along with a lot of transports on the second turn. But you could go right ahead and buy the aircraft carrier to begin with. And then to fill out the $30, you want to buy more boats, and I already explained why you would want to buy a destroyer. And a sub is always good. A sub is a way of taking surface warships out of the Atlantic. It's going to help you anywhere. And if you're playing in the Grasshopper Invitational like I am, using the cliffside bunker rules, one of the national objectives is to remove all of the subs from the board, except for in a couple of sea zones, and I'm not going to get right into that, but basically it's in here or it's in there or there, so you know that doesn't matter too much. But so it's always good to have subs on the board if you're going to play with those cliffside bunker rules, German subs. So that's another way of doing it, but you could also do it this way, and instead of putting those on, you could put a couple of transports on, because two transports cost the same as a sub and a destroyer. So that to me screams Sealion as well as this does, and you want to convince your opponent that you're going to go Sealion, because like I said, you're better off not doing a Sealion attack. You're better off going towards Moscow. But you want to show that you can go either way. So either one of these show that you can go towards London. But either one of them is also going to be a great purchase if you're going to go against Moscow as well. These are the aircraft carriers. One of the most useful purchases that you can make for just about any nation in this game, other than say Russia or something, because you're not going to build a navy with Russia. But they're one of the most versatile units, and one of the most powerful units. Once you get planes on there, it's really difficult to attack one of these things, and it's a really good offense. It extends the range of your planes big time. So always good to have an aircraft carrier. And like I said earlier with this purchase over here, having a couple of transports or having these boats, also a good idea, even if you're not taking London. So make a purchase that you can do, and it doesn't have to be these two purchases. Like any type of plane instead is a good purchase, because the more planes that you have, the better off that you are when you're going for London as well. And planes can be used over in the Eastern Front. They can also be used down in the Mediterranean. So any type of purchase that is good for going for London and good for going for somewhere else will keep your opponent guessing and will be useful to you regardless of what you decide. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm deciding before the game begins that I'm going for London. And then what I want is in the next hour or so that it takes to play round one, then I'm going to see if that's still a good idea when my second turn comes around. So when I purchase units in the second turn, that's when I will decide, yes, I am definitely going for London, or no, I'm not. Because once you make that second purchase, if you bought 10 transports, you're going to have to go for London, because 10 transports is not going to do you that much good over here. It's going to help you say once or twice, and that's it. Then those 10 transports will be more of a liability to you because you've spent a lot of money on that instead of on ground units, and it's not going to do you any good. Another purchase that you can do is no purchase at all. That's hanging onto your 30 IPCs. That's why I put these out here without one of these coasters. I like to use these coasters as mobilization zones. So I've just put this out here saying I'm not purchasing anything. And that's the same as doing this. It's the same as saying I can go either way. I can go after London. I can go after Moscow. I can go after the Mediterranean. You don't know what I'm going to do because I'm not purchasing anything. I'm not a big fan of doing that. I think that you can accomplish the same thing just by purchasing units that can go either way. It's not that there's anything wrong with this. It's just that if I am going after Moscow, I kind of want those units in place on the first turn, you know. I want to be able to use those units on the second turn. And if all I've done is save my money, then all I've really done is successfully faked a Sealion attack or successfully faked a Moscow attack. So, you know, there's value in this, in not spending your money, but I think that you can accomplish the same thing by making a purchase that you could use against Moscow or against London, like either one of these, or like so many others that you can do. You know, one thing I don't want to do is, here, let me just show you here. One thing I don't want to do is make a purchase like this with my 30 IPCs. I don't want to buy 10 dudes. I never ever want to buy that, because if I buy 10 dudes, or if you're playing Germany and you buy 10 dudes and I'm the Allies, then I'm not worried about Sealion. I'm not worried about it at all. You could still do that. You could buy 10 transports on turn 2 if you manage to take enough territories to get yourself 70 IPCs. But if that's all you have, you're probably lost the Bismarck on turn 1. And if you haven't lost the Bismarck, then you've left one of these British battleships, most likely. And that is something that I can use against you when you do go for a landing on London. So you've probably lost this, and the only ships that you're going to have is this one right here, surface warship, and that's it. You know, like if you bought 10 infantry, and in the second turn you have to buy 10 transports, then you've got no other surface warships. So when you go for your London landing, I'm going to scramble all the fighters I have, and I'm going to take you out before you can land in London. You know, like you can't land your planes if you can't take out that water. So I've stopped you in the water. Then the only option you have is, if you came from C Zone 112 or 113, then you have to go back to C Zone 112. You have to leave your ground units on there, and then you're open to my planes. If I can reach with Russian planes, I'm going after them. Like, I'm going after your transports that have your ground units on them in C Zone 112, if that's the case. So this is a purchase that says that you cannot do Sealion attack. There's just no way that you can do it, because you can't get enough surface warships. It doesn't do you any good if you, say, kept a couple of submarines, because you could put the submarines in there with your transports. That's not doing you any good if I'm scrambling planes, because those subs can't shoot at planes. If you did not buy a destroyer, then you're screwed. There's just no way that you're going to be able to make that landing, unless for some reason the British have lost all of their air force. That's the only way you'd be able to go into London with anything but transports and this one cruiser over here. You're going to need to buy some type of surface warships in order to make this landing. You can't just make it with transports. So a purchase like this, or say a combination of this and artillery, is not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to do a Sealion attack on turn 3, and if you're doing it on turn 4 or 5 or 6, then that's too late, because then the Americans are in the war and the Americans are going to be able to stop you or take you back on the first turn, and then you've used all of that money on the transports and everything, and the Russians are going to take you out. So that's why a purchase like this is no good. A purchase like anything that has a combination where you can do a London or a Moscow attack, or no purchase at all, is better than making a purchase like this. Purchase like this means you're going after Moscow, and that's it. And that's fine. You know, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you're doing that against me, I'm buying a complex and I'm putting it down there. At the very least, I'm going to buy a complex on turn 2, and I'm going to put it in Persia. But if I could put one on turn 1 on Egypt, then I'll do that too. If you make a purchase like that, then that opens me up to doing that. And that's why your purchases have to reflect that. Your purchases have to reflect options. Germany has options. That is the best way to play Germany, is to show your opponent that you have options from here, so they don't know what to do. And that's the first step in setting up the entire game, is your purchases that you make for Germany. Okay, I'm going to take a little break and I'll be back after I get ready to set up an attack here. Okay, so our turn 1 attack. Now I've taken all of the units off of Paris, and I've put them down here on the battle board because I know I'm going to attack that. That's going to give me a little bit more room down in Europe there to move around in, rather than getting everything so bunched together. And what I'll do is I'll just throw the German units that are going to attack, I'll just throw them in the ocean and then move them down to the battle board there. Okay, so let's just do that attack first. Now, there's a couple of things when it comes to going after France. I kind of like the idea of not only taking Paris, the capital of France, but also taking one of these two. Now, there's a couple of things to talk about with that. Now, if you go for Normandy, that gets you that extra 2 IPCs, and that's helpful. And that gives the Italians the option of taking southern France on the first turn, so they can get 3 IPCs to begin with, 3 extra IPCs to begin with on their first turn, and that's helpful for them. And what's helpful for them is helpful for you as the German player, because you need as strong an ally protecting your southern flank as you can get. But the other way of doing it is maybe don't take Normandy, instead take southern France. And if you've seen my other German video, the Africa Corps, what taking southern France does for Germany is that it gives you an industrial complex on the Mediterranean, which gives you some other options later in the game. I mean, it could be an option right away if you decide that after the first turn and the second turn rolls around, that Sealion's not going to be an option for you anymore. Excuse me. Then you do have that option of working the Mediterranean. Although I found doing that working the Mediterranean isn't necessarily a good idea for the Germans, because it takes away from your Moscow attack. Any units that you put down there are units that you're taking away from Moscow or from London. So I think you have to go for one of those two, and I think that you have to leave the Mediterranean for the Italians. But having that option, though, having that industrial complex in the Mediterranean is still helpful for the German player. And we'll get into that on the second turn. We're going to do the first turn here right now. But I'm going to go after southern France on the first turn. So what I want is some throwaway units. By that, I'm talking about either infantry or mechanized infantry. So we've got 4 mechanized infantry here. I'm going to go with 2 of them. So that's 1 into northern Italy, 2 down here. That leaves me with 2 mechanized infantry. And let me just grab one. And let's use this sculpt. This is from the America game. So with these 2 mechanized infantry, I'm just going to put them out in the water here for now. Those are all going down to the battle board. Okay, so then we're going to need something to go with these mechanized infantry, aren't we? So let's go with some tanks from southern Germany here. Let's go with 2 tanks in there. This is probably overkill, but I would rather do overkill against, oh, wait a minute, that's supposed to be going here, sorry. I would rather do overkill than underkill. So then let's take this other tank and we're going to go to France with that. So let's move that out here. Now we've got some tanks out here on Holland. We are going to use all of those tanks on Paris. We're going to go with the infantry from Holland and the infantry from Western Germany. We're going to go with all of the artillery. We're going to go with everything that we can possibly go with. Let's see, is there anything more over here? Yeah, nobody else will reach. That's why I would prefer to go with one more of the tanks. And we can decide to do that too. Let's just take a look over here. If we were to use, like I like to end up with this plane on Rome. So let's see here. If we were 1, 2, 3, no, that's not going to do it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not going to do it because this isn't an airbase. But let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could land this plane here down on Rome, and that would give us the 3-plane scramble down there. Although that scramble is the plane is at 3 instead of at 4, but we could do that. And this is just some of the things that you need to think about when you're planning out your attacks. I would like to go with this tank over here. Okay, so let's move this tank over here, and let's take this fighter here, 1, 2, 3 into here as well. There's no airbase, or sorry, there's no anti-aircraft guns over here. So that's okay. The reason we're not taking any planes into France is because there's an anti-aircraft gun there, and you could use your planes somewhere else anyway. So let's just stay away from that. Okay. Now we've got a plan for this plane over here. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use the other planes. Let's move these things out of the way here, because now we're going after the water. So let's just move these a little further away from us, down to the battle board. And that's all of them. So there's a couple of more land things that we need to do. There's one here, but that's in the non-combat movement stage. We're going to go from here to here. We're going to take out these 2 IPCs, as well as all of these infantry we're going to add to ours. They'll become German infantry. The same down here. This is a pro-axis neutral. We're going to come down here and we're going to take that with one piece. The other thing we want to do is we want to come down here to Yugoslavia and we want to take that. So let's move that aside. We'll move these infantry in. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You can save Yugoslavia for the Italians, and this is a good way to get your troops all the way up to here to the front by going in here, making one attack, and if you don't take this out, then you retreat them over to here. As long as you've taken one dude from here to here and retreat him back here, then you can do that. My friend Sireblood there, he calls that a ping pong move, which is a good term. But I'm not going to ping pong. I want to take as much money as I can because of the fact that I want to do this Sealion attack. So I want to take out Yugoslavia. So I'm going there. I'm going to bring in this tank that I can bring in. I've got a couple of artillery here. And you know what? This plane that we were using down here, 1, 2, and then we can land him down here. So let's bring this plane in here. And he's going to be going at 4 because he's paired with a tank. So with the combined arms on that, we're going to be able to use him at 4. Let's bring this other tank down here as well. Now, the only reason I'm doing all of this, I'm bringing so many things in here. Usually I don't bring this many things in there. Is I know I'm not going to go after Russia on the first or the second turn. I'm not going to do a G2 attack. The soonest I'm going to go after them is probably G3, although I still have the option of doing a G2 attack because I am going to move some slow movers up to the front here, and I've got these tanks that can go 2 spaces, so I'm still open to a G2 attack if I do it this way. I'm going to use one of these infantry, I'm going to bring him down there to annex this territory here, but that's not until the non-combat move. So I've done an overwhelming attack here, an overwhelming attack down here, an overwhelming attack in Paris down here. Now I need to go after the boats, and this is the critical part of your sea line strategy on the first turn. Besides your purchases, this is the other critical part. This is going to determine what happens for the rest of the game, is what you do here, or how successful you are here. There's different ways of doing this. The question is, how successful are you going to be? So you've got 5 subs here, and you've got 4 groups of boats. You've got these 3 groups here, and you've got this group over here. You can just see that up in the corner of the screen. It's very helpful if you can get these 2 boats out, because you want as few units as possible on London when you go to attack that on turn 3. And you've got a couple of units here in Canada that you can bring over on the first turn with the British. And this is a good unit. Like this one defends at 2, this one defends at 3. That's very good defense. To be able to bring that over for the British is huge, because every unit counts in this scenario here, in this sea line scenario where you're doing it on turn 3. And the same with everything. Like on your first turn, every unit on this board counts, because you're not starting with too many units. You're starting with a fairly minimal amount of units on the board. So every unit on this board counts on this first turn. And so that tank there and this dude over here, those are going to be big when it comes to taking that out. That could be the difference between success and failure, having those 2 units on here. So I really want to take this, and it's a no-brainer for me to bring 1 submarine in there. But that in itself is not necessarily going to get the job done, because they have a destroyer here. So that destroyer is going to get a shot back at the submarine. There's not going to be any sneak attack. Now, there's 3 things that could happen here. 1, the destroyer or the transport hits, the destroyer doesn't, so both of these things are lost. 2, the submarine misses, the destroyer hits, and so the submarine is lost, and both of these units, both the British units, are still there. Or 3, the submarine and the destroyer hit on the same turn, and then so the transport is saved. Just the submarine and the destroyer are lost. And if the transport is still saved, then he can get those 2 units over here. The same as if the submarine is lost and the destroyer and the transport, then you can get them both over here. But you really need to take that destroyer out and have a submarine left to be able to auto kill the transport. And so that's a good reason why you should be bringing two submarines in there if you can. And it's a choice that you have to make, right? I'm going to make that choice because I think it's a big time move to get this transport out of the water. The transport and the destroyer it's a really big deal, and you'll find out when it comes down to the actual attack on turn 3. So we know that this submarine is going to come in here. As far as the Bismarck, we're going to want to bring it down into here. Now there's a thinking that you should try to save the Bismarck, that you should go in there, you should attack for a round or 2 and then retreat it back to here. I'm not a fan of that, because the last thing that the British player is going to lose is their battleship. I think if you need to take this battleship out, I do not want to leave them with that battleship. That is going to come back and hurt me in the end. I definitely want that battleship dead. I don't care if I lose my battleship. I would love to save it, but I want to take this battleship out. Hopefully the Bismarck is still there at the end of this attack, and the British are probably going to attack it, and hopefully I can take a plane out with it when they do, or maybe take out their boat over here, their destroyer, because it's most likely if this is saved that they are going to attack it. So I want to take out the battleship with this, and I want to take out another unit on the UK turn. So I am not going to retreat. There is no way that I'm going to retreat. Unless they take out the battleship and they've scrambled their planes in here, and I've taken out all of their boats and they only have one plane left, well then I'll retreat the battleship. But I'm not going to take out the battleship and leave another battleship in there. I know that up here with the amount of Luftwaffe that's up here and the amount of RAF that's up here, that I have a better chance of building a navy than they have a chance of building a navy up here. So take out their navy while you can, and don't give them a chance of building a navy in the Atlantic. That's my philosophy. So I'm going to bring the Bismarck down here simply because they have that option of bringing these 3 fighters in. If I were to bring it into this attack, that would be better for me in that there's a better chance of me saving that ship on the second turn. However, if I don't go with it down here, then all I'm using is submarines down in here. And if they do decide to scramble, which I would as the UK player, if the Bismarck isn't going into here, then I would scramble here, because my planes cannot hit the subs. My planes are going to be going after their planes. I'll be killing their planes right off the bat. And I like that idea if I'm the British player. So that's why the Bismarck, I think, has got to go into this fight down here in C Zone 110. So then I've got these other subs. Now, this sub's going in here for sure. I definitely want two subs going in to this attack here. I'm also bringing boats. Planes, sorry. I'm bringing planes in here and here, but I want boats to lose. It'd be nice if I didn't lose anything, but if I'm going to lose anything, I'd rather lose boats than planes, because I want my planes from the second turn on. I don't want to lose any in the first turn. So that leaves this sub here. You definitely do not want to go after this, because there is a destroyer there. If you bring your sub in here, then they've got the 3 planes that they're going to scramble into here. This sub is dead. There's no way that this sub is going to survive this fight. He'd be lucky if he can take this out. There's no way he's taking the transport out. He'd be lucky if he takes the destroyer out, and then he's dead. To me, that's just not worth it, taking a chance at maybe getting the destroyer. I don't think that destroyer is a killer. So my options are to bring it here and to give myself a better chance in this attack, a slightly better chance of saving the Bismarck, although I don't think it's a great chance, because if I go after the Bismarck with nothing but planes, then the sub is not going to help me. As the German player, the sub is not going to help defend the Bismarck. The other thing is going over here, and I talked about that earlier, taking 2 subs against that destroyer and that transport, and keeping these 2 units here out of London. I'm going to do that in this scenario here. I'm not going to do that every time though. Like, there's times where I just want to try, okay, I've tried that, so I'm going to try this. But this term, this video, I'm going to try taking the 2 subs here. I'm going to take the Bismarck and a sub here, and I'm going to take the 2 subs here. So now what do we got here? Well, this plane here that's on Germany, because I haven't built an aircraft carrier, I'm not going to be able to land this plane here. So what I can do with him is I can go 1, 2, 3 and land him on Holland. I can't take him into here because there's no place I can land him. He's got to go 3 into here, and he's starting at a place that doesn't have an airbase, so he can't land. So he is going to have to go into this fight over here. Let's bring this up over here. Now this one here, I want to bring here, 1, 2. And these 2, I'm going to bring in this attack down here. So, there we go. And whenever I bring one of these in, I'm going to want to match it with a fighter. So we're going to bring the fighter into this fight down here. Let's bring the 2 bombers up here as well, and then let's take these 3 fighters down here. So when we look at this, we have 3 fighters paired with 3 tactical bombers down here. So that's 3 at 3 and 4, or 3 at 4. Plus we have a battleship at 4, plus we have the submarine at 2. Now here we have 1 at 3 and 3 at 4. And we have the 2 subs. Now we've gone heavy down here, but we talked about that, remember. We have 3 planes that can scramble into this sea zone. We have only 1 plane that can scramble into this sea zone. So we have to go heavier down here than we do up here. So this is what I'm going to do. And I won't do this every time. I'm just going to do it this time, see what happens. I've got my other plane here that I've gone into here, and I'm hoping to land him down here. I've got this plane that can go 1 more space, so he's going to have to land here. With these 3 fighters here, 2 of them went 2 spaces, and 1 of them went 1 space, and they're going to land on Western Germany, and that's very important. I want planes to land on Western Germany, fighters hopefully, because I'm going to park the boats that I purchased right here, and I want to be able to scramble into there. I don't want to have any scenario where they can take advantage and kill my transports easily because I forgot to park planes here. I don't want to park them all on Holland, Belgium, even though it looks closer, you know, and they're not doing me very much good there. If I have to land them there, then I have to land them there. That's fine. But I want to land them here so that I can protect the boats that I'm putting here. Remember, they have this plane here, and in some wild scenario, you know, where I've lost a lot, they have the option of buying an aircraft carrier and putting it here and taking 2 planes and a bomber into here, taking that out, and then landing their planes on the aircraft carrier. If I've purchased a bunch of boats or a bunch of transports and I haven't protected them well enough, I'm going to do that if I'm the UK player. I know that they can't do a Sealion attack if I've used all of my planes and taken this into here and put an aircraft carrier in here and landed my planes here. I know that I'm going to lose that aircraft carrier and the planes on that aircraft carrier. I'm okay with that. I don't mind that at all. And if I lose the planes over here, then I can take that aircraft carrier that I purchased and I'll put him down on South Africa. Or I could put him over here on Quebec. Like, I don't have to put my aircraft carrier in there unless I have those planes left. But that's something to think about there. Just a little tidbit to think about is making sure that you have enough planes on Western Germany to scramble into your sea zone to protect the boats that you're purchasing and the boats that you're moving over. I'm not worried about the Russian boats. Because I'm not going to, Russia can't enter the war without me taking them first, or without me attacking them first, or without me occupying London. So I'm not worried about the Russians this turn, but down the road, that's definitely going to be a worry. So is that all my attack moves? I think it is. Okay, I'll be back with, let's do the rolling. I'll show you the rolling too, okay? So we'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, so I'm all set up to do the rolling now. Let's do Paris. I've got the camera set up over here. I've got the battle board down here, and we're going to roll up in here. So, we start with the Germans. Now, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 mechanized infantry. So that's 6 at 1, and we have one hit. So let's just let's use this. There we go. And I need the German dice. Okay, now down here we have 3 infantry and 3 artillery, so that's 6 at 2. Ooh, there's a good shot there. That's 4. So 4 more. There we go. And then tanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 tanks. And that's 2 hits. So now we have to remove the casualties before we roll as the defender. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. Now this thing is not doing us any good, so let's remove him, and then remove the cheapest things after that. So that would be all the dudes. So, but these dudes get to roll. So we have 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 dice at 2 or less. We have 1, 2, 3 hits. So we'll just take these right off. 1, 2, 3. And we have 2 tanks. That's 1 hit. And 1 fighter. 2 hits. So 2 more hits. So 1. And let's take one of these dudes off instead of the mechanized infantry. And actually, no, let's not. Let's take the mechanized infantry off because we want to load those transports, remember? Okay, so second round. Second round. What do we have here? We have 1 at 1. Missed. And 6 at 2. 1, 2. So that's these 2. Let's get rid of this one. And 5. 5 at 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's everybody. So they have 2 at 2. That's 1 hit. 2 at 3. That's 2 hits. And 1 at 4. That's 3 hits. So, yeah, let's just lose all 3 dudes and we'll keep the mechanized infantry. Let's do that. So, these things are going to go up to Paris. We're going to take that. Got 3 artillery. And 1 mechanized infantry. There we go, and we've taken it. And we take off the major industrial complex. And we'll put down a minor industrial complex for the Germans. I just happen to have one of those painted up. There we go. Okay then. So let's go to Southern Europe over here now. Right down here. We have 2 at 1 and 2 at 3. So 2 at 1 and 2 at 3. So that's 1 hit. And they have a dude and an artillery, so they got 2. At 2, that's a misses. So we got that again. 2 at 1 and 2 at 3. 2 at 1. 2 at 3, misses, and they've got 1 left. That's a hit. So now we have 1 at 1 and 2 at 3. There we go. And they've got 1 at 2, 2 hits. So it's a good thing we did go with a little bit extra, isn't it? So this is off, and then 2 hits on the Germans. It's a good thing we did decide to go with that plane, isn't it? And we keep that. And we got that. There we go. So we have got ourselves our complex on Southern Europe, which is on the Mediterranean, and that was one of our goals. So what do we have left to roll? I guess we have this land battle over here, don't we? Yugoslavia. So we have got 6 infantry and 2 artillery. So that's 4 at 1 and 4 at 2. So 4 at 1 misses. And 4 at 2, 1 hit. And we got 2 tanks and a tactical bomber. So 1 hit, 2, 3 hits, and the last one at 4. 4 hits. So that's 4 hits on the Yugoslavians. And they have 5. Let's use the French dice. 1 hit. So that's 1 German. Okay. So let's take these off. And there we go. So now we have 3 at 1, second round, 4 at 2, and there we go. They only had 1 left, and a miss. So we're going to take that, take the dude off. So that's what it looks like over there. We've taken that out. Now, let's just take this sucker over to the other side. Get ourselves closer to the action up there. All we got left now is the boats. We'll move this out of the way. Let's go for this attack down here. Right down here. So we have 2 German subs against 1 British destroyer. Here, let's move this over here. So we really want to hit him on the first turn. Misses. Now remember, this is a pretty major attack that we're doing here. That's a miss. Everybody's rolling at 2 here. Misses. And oh, there we go. So that's 1 sub down. Okay, here we go again. German sub. Here, we better change that dice. Those other dice weren't working. Missed. And the British. Oh, look at that. That did not work out in our favor, did it? So, this guy took out 2 subs. That sucks. Okay, so we got 2 subs over here. We have, so that's 2 at 2, 1 at 3, and 3 at 4. And we have to ask the British player if he's scrambling, and he is not. He's not going to scramble in either spot. So, 2 subs, 2 at 2. Well, now he gets 1. And that is not a surprise strike because they have a destroyer in there already. So that's one hit. Okay. And we got 1 at 3. And that's a hit. So that's 2 hits. Let's just move this around to 2. And we have 3 at 4. 1, 2. So that's 2 more hits. And I believe that's everybody. Because this takes 2 hits. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's everybody. So they have 1 at 2, 1 at 3, and 1 at 4. There we go. 1 at 2, 1 at 3, 1 at 4. Wow, look at that. No hits. We could have used some of that luck over on the other spot there, couldn't we? Taking that destroyer out. Okay, so down to the other attack, and they haven't scrambled there either. So we have a 1 sub, so that's 1 at 2, 3 at 3, and 4 at 4. So 1 at 2. Oh, he's getting away on us. 1 at 2. Too bad. See, if we would have hit that one, that was a surprise strike. There was no destroyer down there. 1 at 2, 3 at 3. That's 1 hit. And 4 at 4. 1, 2, 3. So that's 4 hits. And that's everything. Now you can see if we would have scrambled those 3 fighters in there, that they'd still have 3 units left. But as it is, we knocked them all out on the first shot. So we have 2 at 3 and 1 at 4. Oh, sorry. Let's get back here. So we have 1 hit and 1 at 4. 2 hits. Okay, so we don't want to lose any planes. So let's just lose this and damage this, and all 3 of these are off. So that's about what we expected, was that we would have a damaged battleship. We were hoping that we would have that sub to help them, but we don't. And we have these 2 subs here. So let's do our non-combat movement. Now we know we can get all 3 of these fighters back here. Actually, we can get all 4 of the fighters back there. We know we have to land 1 of these things here. And you know what? Let's land a fighter here as well, because we kind of want to protect that too. We don't want to make it too easy. Like they could come up from Normandy there and take us. And that's probably one reason why we're going to want to bring 1 of these things over as well, just so we have something to lose if they do decide to come over from Normandy. Or, you know, like the British can come over across the channel there. So let's move 1 of these in here, and we'll have these for defense. This thing here, what the heck, let's move him in there too. See, we needed these ones here for defense, right? So we'll just use the chips here. So we know that 1 of them had to land here, but we're going to land 2 of them here. And then the bombers, we're definitely going to move to Western Germany. And then we're done there. So the other non-combat movement is we're moving over to here. So let's just take 1 of these, put it there, and move all of these guys over and do that. And then over here, let's move 1 of these guys down and replace that with a German. Sorry about moving the camera around there. I took my eye off the ball. So we get to take that. We've taken that. Let's move this in here. We have to fly this. Where did we come from? Here. 1, 2, and we wanted to come down to here. 3, 4. This one can only go 1 space. He can't land here. He has to land here. We've landed those planes. We've taken everything we wanted to take. So now it's just a matter of rejigging everybody else. Okay. So let's move 1 guy down here, just for some halibut. Let's split this up. Now remember, we want to come over here. We want to have enough dudes to come over here. I was hoping to have some left over in France that we could move back up, but we can't. We've got these 2 in Denmark, so we're going to need 8 of them over here eventually. I think I have enough money to purchase 1. So we're going to need 7. So that leaves us with 4. So we have 4 dudes that we can move off of there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's move 3 of them down there and 1 of them over here. Like that. And that leaves us with 7. So we'll move these. Actually, we don't need to move these 7, do we? We can leave them here because we're putting our boats right here, remember? And that gives us the option of bringing them this way or bringing them this way. So that's what we've got. Just check and make sure we've done everything. We can move this tank. We can move these 3. We know that we have enough. We know that we have enough of these over here, the artillery. So let's move 2 of them down here. And we'll put 1 of them here.
in Poland. There we go. Give ourselves a bit of options here. We have a couple of them down here. They'll be moving up. Next turn, we've got these. We might as well move some of these up because they're not really doing us much good in Germany, are they? We'll leave one back there though, just in case. Otherwise, we're going to move them up. We'll move one of them up to Poland and one of them to Slovakia, Hungary. Now, we have these two boats here we're going to want to move over. These two boats have moved, they've been done. I think I've moved everything that can move except for this tank, and he doesn't want to move. So that would appear to be it. Now we have our stuff that we bought here. Remember, we bought 2 artillery, and we bought a destroyer and 2 transports. And we can count up our money. I know we have 2 national objectives here. Let's cast that chip in for a 5. There we go. It always makes it easier to see what you have when you keep it clean. That's what I like to say. Keep them clean. So let's count this up. We're up to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 4 is 12. 12 plus 19, we took 19 off them. That's 41. Plus the 30 that Germany gets, that's 71. Or sorry, 61. And then we have I did that wrong. Let's do that again. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12. 12 and 19 is 31. Plus Germany's 30 is 61. Plus we have 2 national objectives here. Let's just take a look at what we got. We're not at war with the Soviet Union, so that's 5. We're not at war, we have Denmark and Norway, and Sweden is neutral. So that's another 5. So that's 71 IPCs that we get. So that's 50, 60, 70, 1. There we go, 71 IPCs. And we're looking pretty good. But what we don't like is we've lost both of those subs over there. That was not good. Everything else went pretty much as expected, about as well as you would expect to do, but that is a drag. So these are the kind of things, you add these things up, the things that went wrong. That is a partial no Sealion anymore, but that doesn't completely take it off the table. Not taking out this transport does not completely take that off the table, but it is 1 strike against us. It's, like you get 3 strikes against you, don't do Sealion kind of thing, right? So that's 1 strike against us. And that's the end of Germany's turn 1, and I will be back in a minute. Okay, so turn 1 is in books for Germany, and it was a pretty successful turn. Nothing went too wrong with it. We didn't get diced, except for in 1 attack, but that attack it's not what we wanted, but it's not a killer for us either. Sealion is still a viable option to us, and that's good, because if it was not a viable option to us, then the British could, and everyone else for that matter, could play their game accordingly, like that Germany would be unwise to do Sealion. But it's still on the table, and that's what we wanted. That's a good thing for us. So let's go through the turn order and talk about the types of things that are going to happen that might take it off the table. Okay, so the next country that goes is the Russians. Probably there is nothing the Russians can do to prevent Sealion, or at least to change our mind about that. The only real thing that could change our mind and make us want to go after Moscow is if they do something that is probably not very advisable. Like the only thing that I could possibly see, if they should decide, you know what, I don't like the Japanese, I'm going to go after the Japanese. So maybe, you know, they take a couple of their fast moving units or a couple of planes and they go this way. You know what I mean? They keep their units over here in Siberia and they start moving other units towards that. Maybe they even buy fast moving units, either planes or mechanized infantry or tanks, and they put them on Moscow or they put them on Stalingrad, and they're starting to move this way. You know what? If that happens, I'm not doing Sealion anymore. I'm going after Moscow. There's just no question in my mind. But that's not likely. You know, it's not likely that the Russians are going to do that. The only way that I could see that happening is if you're playing against an inexperienced player and they're thinking, hey, you know what? I kind of like to go that way and take these guys. Uh, it's not the way to win the game as the Russians. But if you're playing against an inexperienced player, maybe they don't know that, and maybe they decide that that's what they're going to do. In that case, then yes, the Russians did help me decide to go after to Russia, you know. But other than that, there's nothing the Russians can really do. I don't care what they purchase or anything. If they haven't run away towards Asia, then that's not going to change my mind, no matter what they purchase. So then the Japanese go, and the Japanese are on your side, and so you kind of got to talk to them about it. You know, like if you're not playing. You know, if it's just a one-on-one game, then you're deciding for yourself. You're looking at what happened with Germany in the first turn, and you're deciding that you're going to go for the Sealion attack or not. But if you're not, if you have another person on your team and that other person is playing Japan, then you have to talk to them about that. Because a lot of players like to go with a J1 attack, and there's a lot to be said for a J1 attack. A lot of arguments to be made against the J1 attack. But one thing is for certain, J1 attack is not very conducive to Sealion. Because if you're doing a J1 attack, and I just did a video on Pearl Harbor the other day, it kind of illustrates, or not the other day, I guess last week or something. It was very recently anyway. It kind of illustrates the point that if you're doing a J1 attack, you're all of a sudden deciding to give the Americans an extra 20 IPCs per turn, and those 20 IPCs, if you're playing against a savvy American player, they're going to at least put a sufficient number of units over here in the Atlantic to thwart a Sealion attack. Because the British, they can't really do anything about it. I mean, they can pile on as many men as they want, but that doesn't take Sealion off the table for the Germans. They can still do that. So the Japanese, if they go for the J1 attack, they're giving the Americans more money, and the Americans are going to have more to spend. They'll have money to spend in the Pacific or the Atlantic, or just the Atlantic, which would take that off the table. Now, on the other hand, if the Americans decide with their 52 IPC starting income to buy everything and place it over here in the Pacific, well, that is a good omen for me if I would like to do a Sealion attack, because the Americans do not start with much in the Atlantic over there. As far as what can stop me from doing Sealion. All they have there is a cruiser and a transport. If they don't add to that, if they don't put anything in there, then that is an almost absolute for sure, okay, I want to go and do a Sealion attack. They need to put things in here, or they can count on losing London, unless of course the British player rolls really well. So the Japanese have a big say in whether or not there's a Sealion attack. I mean, you could talk to your partner and say, listen, I really don't want you to do that J1 attack, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it. I mean, they have the say over what they're going to do with their units, right? I would try to convince them to go for a J2 attack, because that's not really putting them behind the 8 ball. If nothing else, well, like that they're still going to accomplish just about everything they could do on a J1 attack, except for take out this battleship. Put it that way. They're still going to be able to kill everything they can kill on a J1 attack, except that battleship. So try to convince them if you want to go on that Sealion attack. Try to convince them to wait until the turn 2, and then take a look on turn 2. If Sealion if you've made all your purchases for a Sealion attack, well then for sure the Japanese player on turn 2 does not want to attack the Western Allies and bring the Americans into the war. Keep them out as long as possible if you're going for a Sealion attack. So that's between you and the Japanese player. You might have to go outside and do some jello wrestling, I don't know, in the kids' pool. We'll see. So then, after that, we have the Americans. Now, the Americans have a big say in what's going to happen, and I've already touched on that. I don't think I need to say much more than I already have about it. If the Americans place, if they spend their 52 IPCs and they put everything in there, then it's unlikely that I'm going to go for a Sealion attack as the German player. It's not that I couldn't take it, it's just that I'm going to use my money more wisely in going after Moscow than I am in going after both the British and the Americans. I think that's a better way to spend that big 71 IPCs that I just got off of them at the end of my first turn. I think that's a better use of it. I mean, I could even put a couple of things down in the Mediterranean. I've got so much money right now. But that, to me, is a better use of my money if the Americans decide to go heavy into the Atlantic. Now, if they go half and half, then Sealion's still on the table. Like if they put a battleship or an aircraft carrier on one side and a battleship or an aircraft carrier on the other side, then that is something that I can live with when it comes to doing that Sealion attack. So that's the Americans. The Chinese have no say in the matter. It doesn't matter what the Chinese do. Absolutely nothing to do with my decision to do Sealion or not. But the British, we get to the British then, and that has everything to do with whether or not you do Sealion, obviously, because it is Britain that you're attacking. Now, we've already put ourselves a little bit behind the 8 ball by not being able to take out those 2 boats over there. That sucked. That was a drag, but that's not the end of it. It would have been better if that didn't happen. The reason, as far as I'm concerned, the only reason you do a Sealion attack, unless you're playing with cliffside bunker rules, and I mentioned that earlier, there's the token that you can get in London, plus they have the extra national objective of 5 IPCs if you take London, and as long as you hold it, you get that 5. But if you're just playing regular rules, the only reason to do a Sealion attack is to take the pressure off of not just the Italians, but off the middle of the board down here. Take the pressure off Africa, off the Middle East. Take away their option of reinforcing Russia from the south. Take away their option of reinforcing Calcutta from Europe over here. Well, this isn't Europe, but from the European forces, the British European forces. Because if you watch my Middle Earth video, I like to put the industrial complex here on Persia and just pile as many men here as I can. I'm chucking troops up from the South Africa constantly up to there and up to there, and after 6-7 turns there's so many British units in here that it's unbelievable. And those units have the option of going north. They have the option of going west into Africa and the Mediterranean and up to Rome eventually, or they have the option of coming over here. This is what you're trying to avoid as the Axis player. You don't want the British to have free reign down here. You want to make it harder on them. You can try doing an Africa Corps type of strategy, bringing Germans down here, but you have to ask yourself, are you diverting too many resources? The British can still build up down here. They can keep you busy, and then the Americans come in and you haven't taken out Moscow, and probably not the best idea. It depends on what your opponent is doing. You know, maybe an Africa core strategy is a viable option. But that's not likely if you're playing against a good player. You're better off either going right after Moscow or going for the Sealion attack, taking out their money, keeping them from doing anything down here basically. If you do a successful Sealion attack, it would be a travesty if the Italian player wasn't able to bust down here into Cairo and into the Middle East. I mean, if you can't do that, then you failed. Your Sealion attack is going to have minimal effect. All you're getting out of it, if you're lucky, is the token if you're playing cliffside bunker rolls, and that's it. I mean, you do that attack to keep a Middle Earth type of strategy from being successful. That's why you do it. And so you need to be able to make them pay. You need the Italians to be able to expand down here and take the money and make the British inconsequential on the European side of the board. Keep them from reinforcing Calcutta. And by taking out London, you're drawing the Americans in to the war in Europe. They're going everything, great guns going after London up there. They're not going after continental Europe. Instead, they're busy taking back London. So they're not taking Germany and Italy out of the game. And while all that is happening, the Japanese have free reign over here. It's one thing to have free reign over here and losing Europe, but you're not losing Europe in this scenario where you've done a successful Sealion attack. So that's the thinking as the Axis, is hold off as the Japanese player, take out London, and then once London is gone, that's when you unleash the Orange Horde over here, and you take out Calcutta, and you start going after Hawaii or Sydney. So that's why you would do that. And that's, as the German player, these are the things that you're looking for. After the British player goes, then the Italian player goes, and that makes a difference too. How successful have the Italians been down here? If the British player is kicking ass down here after the first turn, the British player is beating the living crap out of the Italians, and the Italians have no boats left. They have hardly any units left in Africa, and it's obvious that the British are going to be able to waste them in 2 or 3 turns down here. Absolutely, that's you want to go for Sealion for sure then, because you have to be able to stop the British, and the only way that you're going to stop them at that point, if the Italians have had a bad turn and the British have had a good turn down here, the only way to turn the tide down here is by doing a Sealion attack. So the Italians do have something to do with it. And France, well, France, like China, they have a little more to do with it. If France defended well there, if they've gotten into your tank supply, like you look at what's left here on France, you've got your tanks, you've still got a mechanized infantry, you've got your artillery. If you've been able to take out France and all you've got left is 1 tank, and so you've got no armor left over on this side of the board, well, that's probably not a good idea then to go after London, because you need those units to go after London. You need to put them on transports, and you need to buy transports. You can't be buying those units if you're buying transports, right? So you kind of need these units in place. Most of the ground units that you're going to do, you need to have them at the end of your first turn in order to go after London. So those are the things that you're going to be looking for. Like how is the fight going down here? Probably not the Russians, probably not what they did. What has the Japanese done? What have the Americans done? Where have they built their units? And most especially, what has the British done? The British need to spend all of their money up there on the very first turn. If they spend anything less than 28 IPCs on London first turn, absolutely go for it. Like if they've decided to put an industrial complex down here, that's four infantry that they did not put on London. Go for London, absolutely. If they put that industrial complex down there, go for London. If they've only, if they put one dude down here and the rest on London, that's not a game breaker. That's not, you don't need to necessarily go for it. But even then, even with one less dude going on London, that's a good omen for the Germans to go after London. But yeah, it's mostly dependent on what's happened on the first turn for Germany and what's happened on the first turn for the British, what the British have purchased. A little bit about the Japanese, more so about the Americans. Regardless of what the Japanese have done, if the Americans put all of their money over here, every cent of it, then that's still a pretty good sign for the Germans to go after London. They kind of need to do that. So let's get into the second turn. Now that we've talked about that, let's say that all of your ducks have fallen into place. Your first turn was as successful as the first turn that we took here, and the Japanese did not do a J1 attack. The Russians just did something normal. They didn't decide to go crazy or anything. Things happened down in the Mediterranean and down in Africa there. The British, let's say they purchased 6 infantry and a fighter, but they took the bomber and the fighter down and did the Taranto raid. So let's take these off of here, and let's say that they took these other 2 fighters against that battleship and they lost one of those. Okay, so what do they have left? They've got this fighter, and then they've purchased a fighter, and they've purchased 6 infantry. So let's put 6 infantry on for the British. Let's just say that that's what they did. You can do other things. Instead of purchasing the fighter, you could purchase 8 infantry and an artillery if you wanted. That would help. In some ways, that would be even better. But I think with the fighter gives you a little bit more options, especially that scrambling scenario that I mentioned earlier, where if they did come with enough boats into here, let's take this off. Let's say they took that out. If they didn't bring enough into there, then so what I would have done with the British, I would have come over with these 2 things as well, right? And these things basically would have changed places like this, or maybe these ones would have went south. They would have taken part in the Middle Earth strategy. We'll take this thing off because this thing would have went in there. Probably. Now, that doesn't mean that all these things happened. You're going to look at, if this is what it looks like though, then I'm still thinking Sealion. So I've got my 71 IPCs, and that's why I took a little break before I restarted the video. This is what I'm purchasing. I want one of these. I want to take any hope of them scrambling their fighters and killing my landing force before it even gets there. I want to take that off the table for them. I've got the 7 transports because I've already got 3 transports, and I had 6 IPCs left over. Can always use more dudes. Even if I can't use them in the Sealion attack, I could certainly use them against the Russians. So I'm not going to attack Russia. If I wasn't going to go Sealion, these purchases would be different. I would not need any transports because I've already got 3 on the board. I still might buy this. I don't know. I might not. But I would make different purchases. There's 49 IPCs. I would be spending some other way. I'd be buying combinations of aircraft and ground units. Maybe getting another boat, like I might get another Saab or a destroyer. I definitely wouldn't be buying any more transports because 3 of them would be enough for right now. I'd be better off purchasing ground units. But I'm going for Sealion, so this is what I'm purchasing. I'm getting the 7 transports. Okay, so there's not a lot of attacks for me to do here. If they brought these things over, absolutely what I want to do is I want to take my subs and I want to come down there. And I'm going to ask myself, is there something else I can do with that? Because they do have the option of scrambling these 3 fighters in there. So I might go after this, I might not. 2 subs should be able to get me that out. And the reason I want to get this out so badly, you remember also that this might have gone in against that battleship, okay? or actually the other one there. So you might not have, well, actually this one came from Canada. Yeah, sorry, this one will be here. It's this one here that might not be here anymore. Let's just take these off the board because these are going to be inconsequential at this point. They may have gone over to Canada to pick up 2 more units. They may not have, we don't know. They might have gone south to go around the Horn of Africa. So what are we looking at here? So we're just going to decide based upon what's here, how many fighters they have. Is the bomber gone? Is the fighter gone? Down to Toronto. A lot of different things that we're looking at. But if it looks like this, I might come in here and I might even bring another one of the surface warships over here. Or I might not do that at all. These things here, they can also convoy. So I could go in here and convoy this. They can come after me with the destroyer. So maybe I'll just go in there with one of them. You know what I mean? And force that destroyer into doing something. But that'd be a non-combat move. As far as combat moves, I think the only thing I would do, because I don't want to bring the Russians in if I've decided to go Sealion. I don't want to bring the Russians in on the second turn. I might go at them on the third turn as I'm going after London. I'm not sure. It depends on what the Russians did, of course, right? It depends on how things look. But one of the things I can do to help out my Sealion attack, I'm asking myself, is there anything I can do to weaken these guys? One of the things I could do is go for a major bombing raid. We're talking bringing everything in that I can go with. And you have to kind of decide, okay, how many fighters do these guys have? Because you remember, they can send them up as interceptors. They also have anti-aircraft guns that are going to be able to bring down your bombers. You want as many planes as you can get with the Germans going into this bombing raid to dissuade them from bringing their fighters into it, and the other is to take off as much as you can. If you want to get that below 10, they got their industrial complex, they could put 10 things on there. You want to bring that up higher than 10. With your strategic bombers, they're +2 each. So if you can roll a pair of 5s, well, that's 14 IPCs you're going to take off their industrial complex if the bombers don't get shot down. So that's one thing that you can do. Remember that we bought this thing here, and it's going to go here. All of your boats are going to go in this space right here, right? So when doing the bombing raid, we can think about that. So let's just bring these bombers out here. We're going to bring all the fighters in that we can. One thing we do have to remember though is, okay, did we buy enough stuff here that we can protect our transports? Because we don't want to have any chance of them being able to come in here, because we have, remember, if we move out here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, we have to land them in Holland, Belgium. We can't land any of them back here. What we could do, theoretically, is leave one fighter back for the defense of that fleet if we want. So let's just bring what we can out there. We'll leave this one on there. We'll bring all of these out. So that's what it looks like. That's what we could bring out here. We've got all of these, and so what do we got? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. That would be 9 at 1 if they decided to scramble their 3 fighters. And they have to be really careful about scrambling their 3 fighters, boy, because if they're not successful with that, then that's 3 less units that we have to take out when we get there. Those fighters are absolutely crucial in the defense of London, and so that's why you would go with overwhelming odds. If all you went with was just half of this much, then it's a good idea for them to scramble their fighters. But if you go with so many that you've got a better chance of taking them out than they have of taking you out, then they're not going to scramble their fighters. But so we'll do that, okay? What did I do with my dice? There it is. And that's all I'm going to do, basically. I don't really have any other attacks. I'm not going to take Normandy. I assume that the Italians have moved up and they're going to take Normandy next on the second turn. We want to give them some opportunities to take some money, and that's one of the reasons we're not going to go after Normandy there, okay? So let's just do this bombing run. Now, as I said, they're probably not going to scramble. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will use, we have 4 tactical bombers there. Yeah, we have 4 tactical bombers. Hang on a second, sorry, somebody's just at my door. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Somebody was knocking on my door. It was just a neighbor. I thought about just ignoring it, but then I thought that they'd probably keep knocking and maybe it would disrupt my video. So anyway, we're going to go in there. They've decided not to scramble their fighters, and so then we need to assign the bombing targets. Definitely the strategic bombers are going to go after the industrial complex. They could also go after air bases and naval bases, but they're not doing that. They're going after the industrial complex. The tactical bombers, they can go after the bases. The naval base, you know what? The naval base isn't hurting us at all. They don't have any capital ships they need to repair. It doesn't matter to us if they go 3 spaces with their destroyer there. It really doesn't matter. Really, the only thing that can hurt us is the air base, because if they have an operational air base, then they can scramble planes into the sea zone when we go to do our amphibious landing, right? So I wouldn't worry about attacking the naval base. For one thing, if we are able to take out London, it would be nice if we didn't have to repair that naval base that we have there, wouldn't it? So if we don't need to kill that base, then let's not. Let's go with all 4 tactical bombers, against the air base, just in case a couple of them get shot down or anything. You know, might as well be safe than sorry, because like I said, the naval base is not going to affect us whatsoever. So we're going to go after the strategic bomber here, or the strategic bombers, with the anti-aircraft gun at the industrial complex there. So, you need to roll 1s, and they missed them. Okay, so we roll 2 dice, and we add 2 for each strategic bomber that we're going in with. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, that was pretty successful. So we take 13 chips. 13 chips, and we'll put them underneath this industrial complex. Okay, so now we have 4 tactical bombers that are going to go after the air base, and that's a bit of overkill. But the reason we brought in so many of them, remember, is so that we could kill the fighters if they had decided to come up against us. Otherwise, I would have only brought 2 of them in. You don't really need 4 to attack a base. But let's do it anyway. So they've got 4 at 1, and they missed. So we have 4, and you don't add anything to these dice. That's only with a strategic bomber. With tactical bombers, they're just, you just look at that. That's 10, 13, 15. But you can only have a maximum damage of 6 on a base. So we have 6, and I'll have to grab a naval base, or sorry, an air base. Here we go. Grab one out of there. So there, we have damaged these bases to a tune of 19 IPCs together. Now this one here, we will need to take off 4 points of damage in order to get it operational. But they could decide not to get it operational. I mean, it's not absolutely imperative that their air base is operational. It just takes that one option off the table for them, right? So then we do the rest of our turn. We're moving stuff around. We want to make sure that we get our 5 tanks. So we see 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's 5 tanks into Western Germany, and we want to make sure we get the 3. And we bought these 2, but we don't need to move these 2. Let's leave them there so that we still have that option. Let me just say something about this raid. Let's say you did this raid just like I did, except for this was wildly successful for us. Let's say it was a failure, like a terrible failure. Let's say we lost 4 planes in this raid. But we'd already made our purchases. Like we bought all this stuff down here. One of the reasons, and I didn't mention it earlier, but one of the reasons that buying that or taking that industrial complex in southern France, or yeah, the one in southern France, one of the reasons that was not a bad idea, it would be because of this raid here. If this raid went absolutely terrible, and that is so bad that it took Sealion off the table for us, then one of the things we could do is take this and take these, and we could have landed, or we could have put those in southern Europe instead. We have a couple of planes that we could reach down there with, so we could have landed the planes in this sea zone, and then we could have put the stuff on, and we could have had those planes on there, and we could have had 2 transports, and that would have given us another option. And then we would have had to put these 5 transports up here, and that would have been okay. You know, we would have had 8 transports there, and that would have given us always that would have maintained a threat throughout the game that we could do a sea lion attack. So it's not a completely waste, but it would be a pretty big waste of money to do that, to have bought these and not be able to use them. But buying or taking out that complex in southern Europe gave us a second option of where we could have placed them. If we had not done that, the only place we could have placed our transports and had 10 transports is on these 3 territories, or these 3 zones right here, sea zones. That's the only place we could have placed those. So that just gives us a second option by taking out southern France. It would have been nice for the Italians to have taken that 3 IPCs, but that just that option is available to us with that southern France instead of taking Normandy. That's something that could help us out. So when we're flying these planes back, one of the things we want to do is we want to take one of these strategic bombers and land it in Sea Zone 112, and then the other ones we can only go 2 spaces. So basically all of these things are going to have to land in Holland, Belgium. Let's just take this off and put a chip on for the fighters. Okay, those fighters, they were not subject to the anti-aircraft fire because they didn't actually go on the bombing raid. Think of it as they flew up to the point where the anti-aircraft guns were, and then they turned around. If you've ever seen any World War II movies, that's what happens anyway. The fighters don't go into the bombing run. It's just the bombers that go in there. Now the bombers we can put back on Western Germany because they can reach that far. They were able to go 7 spaces, and they've only gone 3 to this point. Plus, they can still go to London from there. So that's why we can put them back there. We might as well put them back there, and then we can rejig this stuff around here. Like we'll want to move these guys up for sure. We want to move these. It doesn't really matter what we do with all this stuff. For the purposes of this video, suffice it to say is that you're going to move all your stuff up to the front in defense or in attack next time, next turn against the Russians. But we do want to make sure that we have 10 dudes. So we bought 2, remember, so there's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we can actually use one of these dudes. Let's bring one of these dudes up and one of these dudes up. Let's just bring them down there. Okay. Now we don't have to move these up because remember we're here and we can bring them from here. So we've got 6, 7, 8, and we put these two dudes on 9, 10. We've got 10 things. We got 5, 6, 7, and the 3 artillery that are on Western Germany as well. Sorry, I just got knocked around here. Now, the mechanized infantry that we had left over, that's not going to London. There's no way that's going to London because mechanized infantry are not going to do you any good on an island. They're expensive dudes. You know, they cost an IPC more than a dude does, but they don't do anything more than a dude does when you're sitting on an island. all they are is just losing an extra IPC. We can use that over here. So if we're not going to leave him in France, and we're probably not, then we can move him up to Germany or to greater southern Germany. You know, let's get him closer to the Russian front. We've landed one of those things in there. I guess I shouldn't have done that. We wanted to land one of these things in here as well. And actually, no, we do want to move these guys up, don't we? Yes, we do. I misspoke earlier. We absolutely want to move these guys up because we're placing this in here. It would not have done us any good to do it any other way. So we're placing our units on now, and we've put everything that's going into the assault either in Denmark here, or in Western Germany, or in Holland, Belgium. We've decided we don't need to put them in there. We've put them all in here. So let's just take these 3 off and put 3 chips on. There we go, 10 transports. And then these, of course, are up here. You know what I might do? I might move one of these back here and move one of these over here to convoy. Sorry, I was off camera there. I've moved one of these over and one of these back here. So that's what it looks like now. Now we are in place. They absolutely know that we are going after their capital. The only thing they can do is take the money that they've gotten from the end of their first turn. They need to pay down the factory, the damage on the factory, in order to place units on there. So they're going to pay down as much as they can and place as many units as they can on here, and then it's going to be us against them, right? So let's take a little break here and we'll come back at that point. Okay, so now it's turn 3. What I did on turn 2, let's forget about what the British would have done or what everybody else would have done. Let's just cut to the chase here. Okay, so if you remember correctly, we had 6 points of damage on the air base, and we had 13 points of damage on the industrial complex. Now, I decided that I wasn't going to scramble because of that aircraft carrier purchase and the fact that they had planes that could have gone in there. I decided against using the fighters in a scramble there. And so consequently, as the British player, I decided not to pay down any of the damage on the air base. I don't need an operational air base to defend London. It's nice to have, but I don't need it. So I spent as much money as I could on purchasing units. So what I did was I paid down 11 on the industrial complex. So I only have 2 damage left. And then what I bought was 7 infantry here. That's why I left these off here first. So there's 7 infantry that I'm putting on, and an artillery. I didn't want to put 8 infantry on because I didn't want to have an IPC left over. What I did was I based that on having 36 IPCs for the British at the beginning of their turn. I don't know if that's exactly what they would have had. They could have had a little bit less than that. They could have had a little bit more than that. It depends on whether they had their national objective and what they'd taken on the first purchase or first turn. But that's about what they would have had. So I'm saying 36 IPCs they had. They spent 11 and then 25 purchasing units. And so I've got everything set up on the battle board, everything that could come in in the German assault, and everything that was on London, and the new purchases that I'd purchased and put on London on the second turn for Great Britain. And of course, nobody else could have put anything on there. France couldn't have done anything. The Americans are still not in the war, hopefully, so they're still collecting 52 IPCs, and there's not much they can do. So that's what it looks like up there on London. You can see it's bare up there, but you can see all the units that I brought in. I brought the aircraft carrier, and I didn't need to leave any planes back on the aircraft carrier or in that C zone 110. Excuse me. I didn't need to leave any in there because the airbase is not operational. They chose instead not to spend those 4 IPCs and to spend them instead on a unit that they could use to defend London, because they didn't think it would be a good use of their units to scramble. So we're looking at this. What do we have? We have 5 German infantry at 1, and then we have 10 at 2, and we have, oh, before we do any of that, of course, we have to do the anti-aircraft artillery. So we have 5 fighters, 5 tanks, 2 strategic bombers, and 4 tactical bombers. So we have 5 anti-aircraft artillery, which means that we can shoot up to 15 shots at plane. Only 1 shot per plane, of course, though. So and there's 9 planes going in. So the British are going to get 9 shots at the aircraft, and this is a big moment for the British. They would really go a long way for them if they could take out a couple of planes here. So let's just roll them all at once. So they need ones here, and they got 1. They got 1 hit. So the Germans elect to take off a fighter. There we go. So we only have 4 fighters. And the Germans are considering themselves pretty lucky after that. Okay, so let's roll that up now. So we have 5 at 1 for the Germans. No hits. And then we have 10 at 2. So that's 1 hit. And 2, 3, 4 hits. So let's just use this. There's 4 hits. What else do we have there? We have 4 fighters and 5 tanks, so that's 9. 9 at 3. So we got 1, 2, 3. Geez, that wasn't very good at all. 3 more hits. So we'll put this up here. 3 more hits. And then we have 2 and 4 at 4. So that's 4 tactical bombers and 2 strategic bombers. So that's 6 at 4 altogether. Oh, you know what? And also we have the cruiser there. So let's just roll that cruiser, and he got a hit as well. So let's just put that hit up there. Should have done that first. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so 6 at 4. We need to start hitting. So 4 more hits. Geez, that's not good again. Okay. Oop. Try to put that down there. Okay, let's take a look at that. So we have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hits. Now, obviously, they're going to want to lose these things first. So there's 5 of these. And we need to lose 7 more. That's got to be dudes, I would think. 5, 6, oops. 6, 7. Okay. So we have 7, 8, 18, 20, 21, 22 at 2. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 22 at 2. One, 2, 3, 3 for 11. 4, 5, 5 for 22. Okay, so we'll just do that. We got this dice over here with 5. So then we have just 1 at 3. Okay, we'll just put that one over there. That's a hit. And then we got 3 fighters at 4. So there's 2 more hits right there. So we have 5, 6, 7, 8 hits. Now the Germans are going to lose 8. So that's 5 dudes. 6, 7, 8 dudes. Okay, so we have, this is what we have left now. We have 2 dudes and 5 artillery. So that's 7. 7 at 2. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. So we'll put up a 4 here. And then we have 4 and 5 is 9 at 3. So there's 1, 2, 3 hits. Okay, so we'll put a 3 up over here. And then we have 6 at 4 again. So, oh, that wasn't too good. They only got 2 hits there. So, I'll just do 2 more here. So that is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hits off of the British. So, let's take off these and put one of these on. So we had 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 at 2. So 2, 4, 6 here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 for 7. 5, 6, 7 for 15. Okay. So we'll go like that. 7 hits, and we have a tank. Missed, and we have 3. 7. Ooh, that's not good either. 8. So 8 hits off the Germans. So what do we got left here? We have 2 dudes. And that. And 1 tank. So we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Not looking so good right now for the Germans. So they have 8 at 3. One, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 plus 6 at 4. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. Now they're hitting. So that's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's everybody. So that's 6. 6 at 2. Move this down. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, now they're hitting planes. That's 4, 5, 6. So Germany's got to lose 6. So they're going to lose 3 tanks for sure. Now this is where we have to decide whether or not we want to lose planes and take it or not. And obviously with all the money that it's worth, with all the money that the British have right now, it would be worth us to lose 3 planes. So we're going to lose 3 fighters and 3 tanks, and we're going to take this with 1. Sorry, let's move that up there. We're going to take that with 1 tank. I'm going to take all the stuff off the battle board and put it back on there, and I'll be right back to finish this video off, okay? And there you have it, the successful Sealion attack. It could have gone a little bit better. We did lose a few planes in the endeavor, but at the same time, I mean, we only lost 1 plane in 2 rounds there of anti-aircraft fire. It could have gone worse in the strategic bombing raid that we did on turn 2, and they could have done more than just taken 1 out of 9 shots in turn 3 with the anti-aircraft artillery. So we've taken out the British money. Not sure what they would have had. Probably, like if I was going for this, I would not have tried to take out their national objective. If I was the Italians, I would have left them with their national objective, just so the Germans could have taken 5 more IPCs off of them. And this is what we're left with. I've landed 2 of the planes on the carrier there. I've landed the rest of the tactical bombers on Holland. I've landed the strategic bombers on Germany. Now I didn't make a purchase here, but I show you here I had 52 IPCs. I didn't bother making another purchase. What I would have purchased though on this turn is mostly ground units, if not all ground units. I didn't need any more transports. I didn't need any more boats or anything. Now that I've taken London, that automatically brings the Russians into the war, and it brings the Americans into the war. So I didn't make any moves in Barbarossa here, but I might have done that. It depends on what the Russians had did here. One of the reasons I didn't make any moves is because I wasn't playing the Russians in this scenario that I'm doing today. So I didn't know if it was a good idea or not. But I don't know if this is where this would be sitting. Obviously, if I've let the Russians take the first shot at me, I would have moved the tanks off the line here and put them in behind. I would not have left them out here like this. Or if I was taking them out, like it would look different. This would somehow look different. But what I would have purchased is mostly ground units with this 52 IPCs for 2 reasons. Number one, if this was not quite successful, if they were only left with a couple of things left, I still have these 10 transports, right? I could have gone back here. I would have put my 52 IPCs worth of ground units on Western Germany. Then I would have gone 1, 2, I would have come back in here and I would have taken them on the next turn. There's no way that they could have resisted me a second time like that. I would have been successful on the second time going in there. I don't want to do that though, because if I had done that, then you're starting to get into the point where it's costing you too much to take London, and you do not want to spend too much to take London. One thing I did do is I moved my subs over here into this zone over here, because remember the British might have these left over here, and they have a couple of units here. So I've only got 1 tank here. They could have come to C Zone 109 and put their dudes on and taken that tank off there. If you're playing with the cliffside bunker rules, then that would have been advantageous. If you're playing normal rules, then probably not, because then the Germans would have been able to take London a second turn in a row and taken their money a second turn in a row. But cliffside bunker rules, absolutely bringing those in there. And it wouldn't have done any good to leave the subs up here, because sure, those boats could come up here, but they would only be able to drop their units on Scotland. They wouldn't have been able to take London back. But anyway, with those 52 IPCs worth of ground units, if I did not need to bring them over, and I probably don't now, looking at what I have, I might put a couple here just so I could come back here with a couple of transports and then put some units on. That might be an idea, just to make it harder to take back. But mostly what I would have needed to do was bring my units over this way. So with that purchase of 52 IPCs, instead of having to put them on Western Germany and take a second shot at them, I can put them on Germany, and the fight for the Eastern Front begins. So the 52 IPCs would have been good either way. Even splitting them up, like I might not have needed an entire 52 IPCs to take out what was left in the United Kingdom, so then I can use the other ones over here. But definitely though, that purchase on turn 3 would have been ground units. I don't know that I'm going to lose any planes. I don't know that I'm not going to lose any planes. When you look at what I have here, if you count this one down here, say he didn't scramble, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've still got 8 of 12 planes on there. So that's not much less. I started with 12. I have 8 now, but I've also got a whack of money now. I could start to rebuild my Air Force, or Luftwaffe, I guess you would say, for the Germans. So anyway, that's my video on Sealion. That's the way that I would do it, or one of the ways that I could do it. Of course, you have to roll with the punches. You have to take what's given to you. So assuming that things went the way that I've described them, this is the way that I would do it in this instance, if I was to go Sealion. It's likely that I wouldn't go. There's probably only a 25% chance that I'm going to go Sealion if I'm the German player, but I'm going to set up for it 100% of the time. 100% of the time I'm going to try to take London. 75% of the time I'll end up going to Moscow, put it that way. Well, probably 74% of the time, 1% of the time I might end up going for the Med. Anyway, that's my Sealion video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'm going to get lots of comments because everybody has done this before, or just about everybody has done this, and everybody would do it slightly differently, maybe quite differently than this, and you might have reasons why you wouldn't have done it the way I did it. But just remember though that I didn't do all the other moves, so I might have had to do it a different way. This is just the way that I've done it. Not knowing what's happening on the rest of the board. Nobody else even got moved, right? So this is the way I would have liked to have done it. But then you have to settle for this or settle for that. And if you have to settle too much, then you didn't do Sealion. And that's the way it works. So anyway, have a great day, everyone. I got to get out in the community here and see what I can do for the refugees and get myself some groceries. Talk to you later. Bye.